And welcome to the Healing for Meal Survivors podcast. I'm your host, Mike Chapman. And if you can't guess, it's our Christmas episode. And today I'm going to share interviews with previous guests when we talk about 4 questions. And one of those questions is, what's your favorite Christmas or holiday memory? And those that mention Christmas or any other mentions of Christmas for any of the other questions that I have, only a few fit that category. I'm going to include them. This is a first part, and I will get to part 2 next year. Share with you these wonderful clips of people discussing their favorite Christmas memories. And these are all people who I've interviewed on the podcast. Most are survivors of CSA or trafficking, but definitely sexual exploitation for almost all of my guests. Let's hit it. Most of these recordings are audio only, so I'm going to share the audio, but I'll share information about who the speaker is and so forth on the screen. Our newer interviews are on video, and I intersperse the audio only and the video back and forth, so it's not all audio. So I'll do a couple of audio, then a video, then a couple more audio, then a video, and we'll see how that goes. First up is me. My first interview, where I basically do the 4 questions to myself. This was on episode 1, and this is what happened. What is your favorite food memory? For me, and several of these questions may relate to Christmas for some reason, but yes, that would be one Christmas when I was still in college. My sister, who was a few years older, decided to get up early Christmas morning and make from scratch homemade cinnamon rolls with caramel and pecans and so forth, with homemade yeast dough, all of it from scratch. She must have gotten up at 3 or 4 a.m. to proof the dough and so forth, and made these wonderful cinnamon rolls and fresh squeezed orange juice to go with them. That was just so wonderful and such a great gift to me and my other sister and my mom that it just became a great memory. Tragically, she died a few years later. Long story, but to honor her memory, that is something I've done as a tradition in my own family. On Christmas morning, we, for breakfast, make homemade cinnamon rolls, though they're the pop and fresh kind coming out of the can, but they still taste really good, and buy some nice high grade orange juice. And that has become a tradition with my own family for the last 25, 30 years to honor the memory of my late sister. What is your favorite Christmas or holiday memory? Well, that food memory was one for sure. One thing my mom would do for us, this was after the divorce, and she was a single mom, that we didn't always have a lot of money, but she made sure that we would have fun. And we always would make from scratch Christmas cookies, sugar cookies where you cut them out into different Christmas shapes and decorate them with frosting and all the different decorations. And we would all make together in one setting, decorate all these dozens of decorated cookies that we then enjoy for the rest of the season. And it was just a great way to play together and have fun together, but didn't cost a lot of money. My mom was really great about that. This next interview is from episode 13 with Hector Murray, entitled Faith, Fandom, Cons, and Cosplay Part 2. In these earlier interviews, I did the 4 questions at the end of the episode, and here's what he had to say.
Yeah.
What is your favorite Christmas or holiday memory?
Favorite Christmas memory is being 9 or 10, getting a Walkman with MC Hammer's Please Hammer Don't Hurt 'Em album on cassette, and just
You're aging
me,
yourself.
absolutely. And just I remember like being a Christmas person. Don't hate me. I've never actually watched It's a Wonderful Life.
Horrors. That's like my favorite movie of all time for
Yeah,
Christmas.
I've never actually watched it, but there's always been clips of it on so many times, and there's been so many
Right.
parodies and everything else. I'm like, I got the story.
Right.
I haven't just sat down and watched it, but I just remember like the way the Christmas lights looked in my living room when I was a kid. That night specifically, like It's a Wonderful Life was on in the background. I'm just headphones on, blaring low quality 90s cassette audio of MC Hammer and dancing around in my living room to the point that I'm like waking my parents up because I stayed up all night just listening to that same tape on repeat.
Wow.
And I think that was my favorite kid innocence. Everything is still good memory.
Right. Excellent. I love that. And links to all of these episodes will be in the show notes, and you can get the full backstory of each of these guests and all of their links to contact them directly. And this is from episode 71, my first video live interview with Jim Farrington. And he's also a survivor from First Stone Ministries. And here's what he had to say.
Yeah.
So, what is your favorite Christmas or holiday memory?
We had gone, my mom and dad and I had traveled to Des Moines, Iowa, and my grandmother didn't know about it. She was my mom's mom. We stayed at my Uncle Jim, my namesake. They brought my grandmother over, and we came up from the basement. And when she saw us, it was like this. It was such a beautiful thing. I'd never seen her get so emotional and happy all at the same time to see us. That was a really special time. I think it was the last Christmas, actually, that we were there with my mom's side of the family before my parents divorced.
Gotcha. Yeah, understand. This next interview is from episode 17 with Dr. Douglas Carpenter, my dear friend Doug. And here's what he had to say. What is your favorite Christmas or holiday memory?
Well, one of them just happened this past Christmas. So my daughter got me this bracelet, and if you look inside there, it's like a magnifying glass. There's a picture of me and my dad.
Nice.
And so I get to carry him with me, and I can look in there and look at us anytime I want. So yes, she made me, I burst into tears when she gave it to me and told me to look through it, and I realized what it was.
Wow, that's nice. And you were close to your dad, right?
I was close to my dad, and he just died in July.
Right. Yes, I'm so sorry about that.
Thank you.
That's extra special then, for sure.
Yes, so that was very, very meaningful.
Excellent. This next interview is from episode 18. Kevin Bolger, who's the friend of mine, co-host of the No Longer Ashamed podcast that I've been on many times. And he is also a survivor, and here is what he has to say. What is your favorite Christmas or holiday memory?
I think my favorite Christmas memory was the first time I saw the Peanuts movie, the Charlie Brown Christmas. And that memory is also tied in with my favorite Bible scripture, to tell you the truth. So I'll tie that in when we come to that question.
Okay. So what about the Charlie Brown Christmas drew you to that? Was there a character in there that you could relate to most?
Yes, Charlie Brown, of course.
Right.
I always felt very wishy-washy growing up, and like I wasn't ever able to get anything, do anything special. But what struck me the most about that movie was when Linus, when Charlie cries out, doesn't anybody know what Christmas is really about? And Linus goes on stage and reads Luke 2. That was my introduction to the Bible when I was young. Because I did not grow up going to church, learning anything about the Bible. And when I first saw that, I realized that's what Christmas was all about. And it just struck me that was the real important thing about Christmas, was that's the day Christ was born. It wasn't about Santa Claus and presents. It wasn't about Christmas trees. It was about Christ being born. And that was my introduction to the Bible when I was young.
Wow. Love that.
And to this day, that's still my favorite Bible, I think, verse is Luke 2.
Yeah, you can do a chapter. I have a whole section that I use for my favorite too.
I have a lot of favorites.
That is one of my favorites as well, is Luke 2. I do love that. Especially because towards the end of the chapter, where Jesus is a little older, and I think that's when he goes to the temple and so forth. It's like parents are freaking out. Of course, I'm going to be in my Father's house. So that's towards the end of chapter 2. So all that Jesus is growing up years.
All of Luke
Uh,
2, but
yeah.
that one scripture where it describes the shepherds and the angels, it just brings a sense of awe to the actual birth of Christ, which is the birth of our Lord in this
Exactly.
world. And I've always held that sense of awe since, first hearing Linus speaking it and then actually reading it. Every time I read it, it still strikes me.
Right. Right. Okay. And let's see. Well, you've hit number 4, so we'll go back up to number 3. What is your favorite church memory?
Yeah. Favorite church memory? Well, there's a few. One of them is when my pastor asked me to narrate at the Christmas program. And I have never liked being on stage or in front of people. I have terrible stage fright. And I said, no way. And he said, well, you can read it from the sound booth and no one will be watching it. You'll just be narrating it on a microphone. And so I did it and it was great. It was amazing. I'd never done anything like that before. I'd never been on mic, never been on stage. I avoided it as much as I could, but it was really fun. And especially to hear my voice in the whole church, and no one knew it was me except for a few people, and it was really fun.
And here is my interview from episode 73 with Sean Wheeler, who is a survivor of sex trafficking and works with young men, boys and young men who have been trafficked. And here's what he has to say.
So, what is your favorite Christmas or holiday memory?
Even from the time when I was a little kid, I will say Christmas was always one time a year that I was safe. And now I have particularly fond memories. My mom's mother, my maternal grandmother, knew how to wrap presents in such a way she didn't have to put names on them. You could figure out who they were by easily guessing. And I got a pair of skis one year when I was 9, I think so. But she had them wrapped up to look like a rattlesnake, and I just knew the rattlesnake is mine.
Wow. I can't imagine how you would get skis to look like a rattlesnake without breaking the skis. But I love the concept you said, Christmas felt safe. And I think that relates to me, that whatever happened, because I was expected to be at all these family events on both sides of the family, that none of the bad stuff happened.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting.
And this is the interview from episode 19. Luke Wiersma, and he's a survivor. We have been on multiple episodes of the Kevin Bolger's No Longer Ashamed podcast, and he's appeared on our podcast many times as well. And here is what he had to say.
What is your favorite Christmas or holiday memory?
Opening Christmas presents at Grandma's house.
Okay.
I don't know. I just loved being there. It was very comforting to be at Grandma's house.
Yeah, for sure. The grandmas are great. I had 2 very loving grandmothers. They have a special way of loving us. Yeah, good ones. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. So, what else? What was special about your grandma?
With the Christmas or in general? Kindness. It was so much. She had just had so much kindness and love for others. She could be strict. She was a very godly woman. So she had that too. She was still very loving.
Yeah, it sounds like Luke really needed that extra loving person in his life.
And this is the interview from episode 21. Ed K., one of my guests who preferred anonymity, so we did not share his full name, but this is what he had to say.
What is your favorite Christmas or holiday memory?
So I have a Christmas memory from about, I'll say 12 years ago, maybe 13. It was when all my kids were still in school, high school or under, and all 4 of our parents, my wife's parents and my parents, were all still alive, and we had lots of little kids running around. But it was also the first year that Kim's dad, my wife's dad, couldn't really host anymore, and there was all these extra people. So I said, I'll do it. And then I actually ended up feeding like 27 people. It was fun. I just made this orange glazed chicken, and everybody was really happy and celebrating, and it went really awesome. And I had my family. It was like a blended event, which never happens. It hasn't happened since, but my parents and her parents and all the kind of everybody that was around came to our house, packed it in. And I didn't produce one drop of sweat the whole time. And people were like saying, how do you do this? And I'm just like, I don't know, I just do it. I worked in a restaurant, so I knew how to do that.
Oh, well, yeah.
Anyway, it's a really fun memory.
Of course, I used to work in a restaurant too, but I was not in the cook side. I was just the clean the tables, wash the dishes. But I know, yeah, if you're like a chef, you have to plan the meals and plan cooking times, and so everything is ready when it's supposed to be ready, and planning all of that. I mean, that's a lot. So,
I would never do it now.
Yes. So that's excellent. Yeah. So now, what about what is your favorite church memory?
So my favorite church memory is from actually this last Christmas season. We had a lot of chaos. I was starting husband material and having lots of anxiety, and my wife had just broken her knee. She has lots of falls and trouble navigating and whatnot. And so it was a very high stressful time, and my kids were like all doing stuff, and we basically had no plans for Christmas. And I had to go work tech at my church, and something had just happened. I think we had to deal with an emergency at home right before I left, and I was all super agitated, and I snapped at one of my one of my church people came up and asked me something. I said, no, just like yelled at him. And then he comes later, and he's just like really nice. Didn't ask me why I did that, but he just was checking in, and he said, he said, I have to leave pretty soon. I'm going home to decorate Christmas cookies. And I'm like, oh, Christmas cookies. And he says, you're upset about Christmas cookies. And I'm like, yeah, we don't have any. We're not going to have any. We're not even really doing anything for Christmas. And he says, I'm bringing you Christmas cookies. He and his wife brought this huge tray of like 40 cookies over, and it was just like it was like the community thing, he's not really a really good friend. I still not, I mean, it's not an enemy or anything, but it was just like, that just really meant a lot.
But showing love. Yeah.
And I cried when I got those cookies.
Because they were made with love and given with love and received with love. And those are really the best gifts. And yeah, that's so sweet. I love it. And it's a Christmas memory, and it's a food memory too. Yay.
Right. I had to figure which category.
Yeah. Yeah, but I love that. Showing God's love through simple acts of service like that. Yes, it's good. That's excellent.
And this is from episode 74, my interview with Scott McKellar, who's from Australia and is also a survivor. And this is what he had to say from Down Under.
So, what is your favorite Christmas or holiday memory?
Probably the year that we had Christmas at my house. It's the only time that my in-laws and my parents have been together at Christmas, and we had some relatives of my wife there as well. It was just nice. Instead of having to travel, it was just nice having a Christmas in our home. But we were only living in that house temporarily, so it was the only opportunity we ever had to host Christmas at our house. That was back in 2011. And then the next year we had Christmas. My aunt, we'd been estranged for many years and reconciled. So we had Christmas with my aunt the following year, and that was really nice.
Excellent. Any particular memory that stood out about either of those events?
Probably the fact that we were able to reminisce about old times. The fact that I was able to get that. It's one of the. So often my daughter, her grandparents are often not together, so seeing them all together in the same room was very beneficial for her. And it was also we had my nephew over, and it was the first time my nephew had actually been over to my house. He was only 3 years old, and he really enjoyed himself. It was also an opportunity for my wife's elderly uncle to get out and about, because he was quite a bit older and fairly socially isolated. So it was a good chance for him to get out and about and mix with other people. My wife's aunt was living with us for a while, and the following year, I think it was a lot of healing, because there was an uncle who was estranged, who said some unpleasant things, and they were divorced, and I was able to reconcile with my aunt and cousin and talk about old times and be friends again. And I'll always be grateful for that we did reconcile. That's really good.
Okay.
And this is my interview from episode 22. Daniel Eichelberger, who is a survivor and friend, and he's been on the podcast several times on multiple panels. And here is what he has to say. What is your favorite Christmas or holiday memory?
Oh, that's good. Well, with Christmas, there's usually quite a few memories that come to mind, but I think the first one that came to my mind, I would have been younger, probably kindergarten, maybe first grade, and sitting around the Christmas tree with some of my sisters and brothers and just singing carols around the tree together, just feeling the wonder and the delight of the season with all the darkness and the cold weather outside, and we were warm inside, sitting around the beautiful tree, singing songs together. That's the one that often comes to my mind now that I'm getting a little older, when I think back to my childhood and happy holiday memories.
Excellent. Excellent. This next interview is from episode 23, my interview with Rocky Pizer, who we both serve in leadership with husband material. And he's also a survivor and shared his story. And here's what his response is. What is your favorite Christmas or holiday memory?
I have one automatically as my favorite. I was in a hospital a lot as a kid, and up through 7 years old, I was always in the hospital over the Christmas holidays with asthma attacks. And I'm old enough, we didn't have the emergency inhalers. And so an asthma attack means that I would get a shot at home. My parents, we lived in the country, we'd drive to the children's hospital and I'd be in an oxygen tent for a while. And so I missed Santa Claus for 6 years in a row. And so this year is the seventh year, and I'm in the hospital over Christmas, and I come home 2 days later. I've always missed opening presents and all that. And I walk in the door, and the Christmas tree is up. There's still presents under it. And some 7-year-old boy, I'm like, so what's going on? And Mom says, well, there's a big note right in the middle of the tree. It says Rocky on it. Maybe you should open it up, because it came Christmas night, but there's no Santa presents. There's just family presents here. I'll go, okay. So I open it up. It was a note from Santa, and it was in, his own handwriting. And he said, Rocky, I understand again, you're in the hospital for Christmas, and we've talked it over in the North Pole, and the elves all voted on it that I need to come back when you're home, and we're going to do Christmas when you get home. So the day you come home, expect me to be there that night, and you can celebrate Christmas morning with your family the next morning. And you know what? He showed up, and the next morning I had Santa presents, and I had the best train I've ever had that was delivered there that we set up, and it was the most amazing Christmas. I got to celebrate Christmas with my whole family finally when I was 7 years old.
Wow. Yay, Santa. Yay.
Oh, I love that guy.
That's excellent. Yes. Well, that's wonderful. That's a great memory. And this is from episode 78, my recent interview with Scott Raylitz, who is also a survivor and shares his story. And this is what he had to say about Christmas.
So, what is your favorite Christmas or holiday memory?
Okay, well, for this Christmas memory and holiday, I have to say it's my favorite, but it also happens to be one of the most traumatic. We were living overseas, and we were preparing to have 2 Russian teenagers, brother and sister, live with us, and it was going to be basically just a few days before Christmas that they were going to move in. The Sunday before the Christmas, I got home, and I got an email from my sister saying that we tried calling you and couldn't get in touch with you. Unfortunately, your dad has passed away. And I just froze. I couldn't speak. I was just looking at the computer. My wife was preparing food in the kitchen. I went in there, and it's like, I just pointed at the computer and just had her read it. And it's like, but make this short. The day that my dad would have had his funeral was the day that the 2 teenagers were going to move into our house and stay with us. And I prayed about it, and I felt like I can best honor my father by being the best father to these 2 children.
Absolutely.
I wrote a letter trying to explain that, and had them a letter to be read at the funeral. My nephew and my brother-in-law both took turns reading parts of it at there.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
What kind of, I mean, it was, my wife and I never had any children of our own. So that was part of what made it so special is we had them living with us. And then a number of months had passed and Sergey, the older one, told us that that was the best Christmas that he ever had because their family life was so crazy all the time.
Right.
So
Right. Wow. Yeah. Great story. I know similarly with my own life, I was there. My mother was in Nevada and I'm in North Carolina. She died about 8 years ago. And I was there in the hospital when she was dying and was there when she passed. But I had work commitments and we didn't know. I mean, you can't plan. And I had a return plane ticket and I had to get back to work. So I was not able to be there for her funeral, but I was able to write something and that my sister ended up reading that for the service. So yeah, I was able to share a part of myself, but I had to get back, family commitments, my own children and so forth. So yeah, it's hard. You want to be there, but then, yeah.
I'll just interject that part of what I think played a part in it is because that in the previous August, just 4 months beforehand, we were not planning to go to America, but God directed us to come back just for 2 weeks. We needed to get new visas,
Right.
but normally we never take such a short trip because it's kind of hard on us. And also it's a big expense to do it, but we're supposed to go back and it's just for 2 weeks because we had commitments. We had to be back for start of school and a number of different things. So during that 2 week time, I got to see my dad 3 times. And one of those times I spent almost most of that afternoon and most of the day with him. And the very last time I saw him and we were saying goodbye, my dad said that he was proud of me. And that was probably the first time in my life I ever remember him saying something like that. And so when we heard the news that he passed away, it was like, wow, that's why it was so important for us to go back to, we had that touch of healing for both of us, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah. Having those precious moments, not even realizing those would be the last ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a few moments like that with my mom as well before she passed. So, wow.
And this is from episode 24, my interview with A.J. Vassar, who is a survivor and entrepreneur. And here's what he had to say.
What is your favorite food memory?
My favorite food memory is probably making these tortilla pizzas my mother used to make the family. She'd allow us to make them. So she'd buy the cheese, the pepperoni, the tortillas, the sauce, and we would just get to put it and build it as big as we wanted. So that's probably one because I was a big kid. I used to be able to make as many as I wanted and put as much cheese and stuff as I wanted.
So use the tortilla as the base. How well did that work? Did they firm up at all, or
they did
worked enough?
They firm up a lot. I don't know how she did it, but the cheese melted. It was firm, and it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got to remember that. That's one thing we do at Christmas time because when I'm from the West Coast, my wife's from the East Coast, and we lived on the East Coast. So Christmas Day was all her family. Christmas Eve was everyone's in-laws, but my in-laws were thousands of miles away. So we didn't have anything on Christmas Eve. So that became our tradition, was to do homemade pizza. And then when we had kids, we continued the tradition. And we've gotten super fancy. Back in the day, it was like Chef Boyardee stuff in a can that you'd make. It's nasty, but it's still fun to make. They still sell that too, which is amazing. But we went with Bobolese, or I know our Walmart here at our new town in the refrigerator section, they got refrigerated pizza dough ready to go. So you can just take that and lay it out and all that. So I think we might do that this year. But yeah, the tortillas, especially if there's little kids, that's probably a really good idea. And you can get creative, put whatever toppings you want. And yeah, I love that.
And here is from episode 25, my interview with Roger, who is a survivor, also wanted to maintain anonymity, though He also shared poems and so forth on some of our live Male Survivor Awareness Day events as well. You can hear Roger share a few times there as well.
So, what is your favorite Christmas or holiday memory?
Favorite Christmas or holiday memory? It was when I was about 10 or 11, and we lived in Reno, Nevada, and it was snowing. I sat with my mom in the dark in the living room watching it snow, watching it come down in the street light. We just kind of had a moment there. That was also the Christmas where we were financially doing better. So that Christmas morning, we all got all kinds of toys and stuff, which was extremely unusual. So that was probably my happiest holiday memory.
Nice. Nice.
And this is the final interview of this installment. And this is my interview earlier this fall. Again, video interview with Ken Frere, who is a coach and entrepreneur and host of the Shameless podcast. And here's what he had to say. Hope you enjoy.
So, what is your favorite Christmas or holiday memory?
Man, my favorite Christmas memory is when it was like the first Christmas when my kids, my two oldest ones, were just old enough. I think they were like maybe 5 and 3. And we went to one of those kind of like Christmas, like parades, not parades, but like a light show. There we go. It's a light show. And we were in our car and just driving around, and just like that magical moment for little kids where they loved it. Like they were sitting on our laps and we were blasting the music. And it was just so much fun to see it. And they're like, let's do it again. And we like just keep going around and just seeing them get so excited. It's now a tradition. I have 4 kids now, and it's definitely a tradition where we go see lights, and just seeing them get excited for that brings some fond memories for me.
Absolutely. That was a fond memory for me. Growing up in Portland, there's something called Peacock Lane, which is one of those Christmas light streets where everyone decorates, and they do it for like generations. And there's that one street in Portland, Oregon that yeah, we got to go see Peacock Lane. And yeah, there's several. It's usually like farm, agritainment kind of venues around here that do lights. And we've got several that we used to take the kids to all the time, but now they're like adults and don't have their own kids. Eventually something to look forward to when grandchildren are a thing, but they're not a thing yet.
Yeah, soon enough.
Yep, that's right. That's right. So,
and that's it for our Christmas episode. Part 1 of the Christmas Clip Show. We'll see you in January with a fresh batch of episodes, and I will work on Part 2 next year with even more videos and interviews from my previous guests. And we'll see you next time on the Healing for Male Survivors podcast.